Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's device management interface call. Thanks for joining. As usual, the call is public and recorded and will be shared live on YouTube, so please be mindful of the comments you make and the information you share. So having said that, I have to say I have to refresh my mind a little bit on things because we skipped last call and I was totally focused on the release of Volta. So there might be some things that have, how can you say, slipped my mind about a few things here. So I would say let's start with the pawn ID. So we agreed that we would do it via the DMI, and the DMI would be the place to start to configure this pawn ID. But there was a discussion around last time around the need to match the Volta side ID and the DMI side ID to make sure that the configuration is consistent. And it was assigned to you, Amit. I recall discussing this with David, and there was a point where, and Girish was also involved, and he said that actually Volta doesn't really need the pawn ID at all, so it can live without it. Do you mind refreshing my memory and our memory here about this?
Yeah, Andrew, thanks. So yeah, true that Volta does not need the pawn ID. So the pawn ID, as we understood from the requirement, right, is going to be a string which needs to be broadcast on PLOAM messages on that pawn tree.
Yes.
Right. And so Volta doesn't really care about this for any practical reasons.
Okay.
And I think based on the previous discussions, I think the choice is that we go through the DMI path.
Yes.
Right, to pass on this information down to the OLT, which can then keep on broadcasting it.
Yes.
So yeah, so I think we can design the interface, right, for this particular change.
Yes.
So we will have to revisit the requirements and see what are the things that need to be configured. One is definitely the ID itself, right, which needs to be broadcasted. And need to check if what are the other requirements. Do we need to configure the periodicity at which it needs to be broadcast? Is there anything else, right? I think we would assume, or not assume, we would have to clarify, right, if we will keep it stored in the device, right, as a configuration, or how does it happen, right? So that also needs to be decided and documented. So yeah, I think the other thing that was there, which I think you just removed, I think, was something related to the identification of the port on the two interfaces, Volta and DMI, which is not really directly related to this feature, but is a more generic problem which we need to sort out, at least according to me, unless we say that, okay, we really don't want to get into that in this space, and we leave it to the operators to figure it out, however they want to do. So the basic question there from me is that how do we identify the ports across the two interfaces, that is on the Volta interface and on the DMI interface? Right. So as of today, a port on the Volta interface has a port number, right, and as a label. Right. So for the PON ports, you have a PON label, and for the NNI ports, an NNI label. So these are the two things or attributes that a port has. On the DMI interface, right, we have for each component, the port is also a component. So we have a UUID, which uh, identifies the port, and the parent of the port, which would be the SFP, will have its own UUID. And the parent of that SFP would be the cage on which it is, which would have its own UUID. So those are the identifiers. And for port type of components, we also introduce something called as a physical label, right? Which is another hard attribute of a port. So these are the attributes that are available on both the sides. Now, a user of both these interfaces, which in case of A4 is a component sitting on top of, say, the DMI, as well as on top of Volta, how would that be able to figure out the same port on both the interfaces?
Can we live with the assumption that the label is the same, meaning that this, we call this as a label, and this are the same?
So the label that we have right now is called as the physical label, right? Which actually means, or which actually should have the value of whatever is physically written on the box for that port. It is more
Ah,
perspective of identifying, right,
okay. Mm-hmm.
that port on the box.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
But the labels that Volta generates, right, is a logic which is embedded into the adapters, right? So the Open OLT adapter is generating it for the H-core devices, right? So it
Mm-hmm.
generates it, I think, based on the interface ID that BAL gives for each of the ports, along with the type of the port. So it generates it as PON-0 to PON-15. And I think NI-0 to, okay, we have only one NI as of today. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the logic it uses to generate the labels on the Volta side.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing that I was thinking, a possible solution could be that on the DMI side,
Yes.
we introduce a new attribute
Uh-huh.
called, say, as an example, say a mapping label. And the value of this label should be uh, generated using the same logic as Volta employs, so that the value is the same. So with this, what would happen is that DMI would have a dependency on Volta only in cases where uh, it is running along with Volta. I would think in all
Mm-hmm.
cases there's no hard and fast requirement, but this mapping level, it would be an optional. I think all the attributes are optional, but could be an optional attribute, right? So, which could help the user to figure out that, okay, based on this label being matched, it's the same port that I'm talking on both these interfaces. On one side, it would use the port number to identify the port. On the other side, it would use the component UUID to identify the port, right, on any
Mm-hmm.
of the APIs. But to figure out which port is which one, it could be, this could be a potential solution. I really could not think of anything else, but yeah, if somebody else has any other thoughts on this, I'm glad to hear.
So as I see in the spec, Amit, they say any value of interest to the operator regarding the pawn identifier. Is it just that about the pawn port label or ID, or should it
So,
be
so
complete
sorry,
info?
before you get to that question, Chandra, so let me clarify here before, right, that the port ID and this mapping level, what we're talking about, they have nothing to do with each other. The port ID is something that we need to configure on the port. Okay, this mapping label or this label thing that we're talking about is something wherein we're trying to solve a more generic problem of identifying a port across, how to identify the same port across DMI and Volta.
Got it, Amit.
Okay.
Like we don't have a physical
Now
port
you
number.
can please. Now you can please tell your question again.
So we have this physical port number, right? That should remain the same on both the interfaces.
So Volta does not have a physical port number. And if you think of it, there is I don't know. BAL does not have that concept at all, right?
No, I don't think so.
No.
Okay, always is in this format, PON-, and NI-.
Yes, so that is what the adapters are generating. So the OpenOLT adapter generates it that way. Maybe tomorrow some other adapter could generate it in some other way.
If you recall, Amit, is there any assumption about this number, PON dash number in Volta aside from the adapter? Meaning, do we use it anywhere in such a way that if an adapter changes this behavior, it might be an issue?
I don't think so, but I'm not 100% sure. But if at all anyone is doing it, I think it is wrong, right? Because it's a string.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree with you on that. But just I just wanted to make sure.
No, I'm not sure about it. I'm not 100% sure that if anyone is really interpreting that string and doing something on that.
So one question I have.
So what I know of is that the port numbers that are generated, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that has a lot of embedded information within it, with the type of the port and the interface ID, and in case of ONUs, the ONU ID and things like that get embedded into the number, which is the port number, and that gets interpreted. But I'm not sure about the label. I think the label is interpreted.
Sorry, one question I have. So is this the label that is passed to the agent, and the agent finally needs to, let's say, invoke a BAL API, which will accept the interface ID, which is again a number 1, 2, 3, 4.
No, I don't think the label is passed anywhere. It's I think it's only the interface ID that the agent and the adapter talk on. I can cross-check on that if needed. Maybe somebody else also could check on that. But I thought the label is more on the northbound interface of WAP, of Volta. It is available in the port structure. And depending on the users of Volta, if somebody is using it. But within Volta itself, I'm not very sure where exactly it is getting used. I know in some of the events, it gets written out, the port level. But anyways, what I'm proposing is that we don't touch anything on Volta.
Yeah, I agree with that. Because that simplifies the integration very much.
Yeah. And so I am assuming, right, there is an assumption that folks who are writing the Volta adapter for a device would know the device management adapter or the device manager and vice versa. So it should not be a very difficult task of employing the same logic across both these components. But this is an assumption. I don't know if in certain cases this might not work.
This is not true for my company, so we're teams, but I guess we can figure out what has to be done in the device manager.
Yeah, but truly speaking, I really couldn't think of any other way by which we can do the correlation. Because we would need some common identifier across these two interfaces.
Yes. Yeah, to be honest, I think this is the best way. We really don't touch Volta, and we make the changes. Well, we don't make the changes. We just use the DMI in and extend it in such a way that it works for us. And this way, we just enhance the system. And I agree with the assumption that the company developing the adapters and the DMI need to be in sync on the information, I guess. But on the open source front, we can make that assumption because Radisys is developing the open source device manager, and we have the open source adapter and OpenORT, so we can just make that assumption, make sure that that is there and present. And for the other companies, I guess it would be up to them. And we could also, to make this present, we could have a test that deploys both Volta and the DMI, and and checks that this label is the same. Would that work?
Yeah, we could do that as well.
Olga, Chandra, any thoughts?
I mean, you can check that the same labels are used, but can you check that this is really
No,
the same physical port? I mean,
you can't. We have to rely. So that's the basic problem, right? We have to rely on the adapter and the device manager saying that, okay, you guys are doing the right thing. What I only can do is to check what you're reporting is the same on both the sides. But if both of them are reporting it wrong, right? Can't really figure that out. Yeah, you're true.
Yeah, there's nothing we can do if I guess you're not being a lawful citizen. You know, you're breaking the law, and we check that apparently you're not doing anything wrong. But if you do it, and there's really nothing we can do. To me, there's really nothing we can do there.
Yeah. So given that, I think Andrea, then maybe the test is not really needed.
At least there is some sort of verification.
Yeah. So see, what really we can test is that, say you bring up one of the ports, right? Only one of the ports, then you can test and see if, say for example, the port is whatever X, right? And it is being reported as port, say PON-5 on the Volta side. Is it being reported as the same PON-5 on the other side as well?
Yes. That's really the only thing we can check.
Yeah, but I guess it's not going to be that straightforward, right? Because you can BBSIM and things like that. Yeah, we can.
We can. There's ways we can bring up just a port and make sure that that port has the same information. There is ways.
Yeah.
There are ways we can do that too. Okay, let's. Amit, do you think it's worth putting in somewhat of a better shape as a proposal and submit it to TST as well, to make sure that we are to Volta TST as well, to make sure that we are not like doing something wrong and the TST is not going to be okay with this?
Yeah, why not? I can do that.
Okay. Do you
but
mind doing that?
Is it such a big item that it would need a TST approval?
It's DMI only, so maybe not, but maybe we make them aware of it. We just don't say.
So
We
yeah, I'll do a short one paragraph write up and we can discuss on the next TST. You can assign that to me.
okay, fine, perfect, thanks. Okay. Any other thoughts or comments on this one?
I have one observation wherein currently the interface ID starts from 0, whereas the physical port numbering will always be from 1. Just my observation.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Should we make it start from 1 in Volta as well?
Why do we
Or
want that?
you think that we can absorb this completely into the logic and just be done with that?
No. So the physical, see the physical label of the port, right? Could be anything.
Yeah.
Right. Instead of saying it is numbered from 1 to 16, I don't know if we have some weird vendor, sorry. They could mark it as A, B, C, D, E, F, right?
Yeah.
Right, because these are just physical markings on the box. But that doesn't mean that we have to call them the same way in Volta. In Volta, we have a logical label for the port, and that is, okay, determined by the adapter. And I think that should be fine. As long as we can map it, I think we should be fine.
Okay. Yeah, fine by me.
So, so just to circle back on this, so at least within this group, are we fine with this proposal before I type it out and discuss it in the TST, or should we go another round and see if we have some other options? Just not that I know of.
I am fine with this.
Holger, any thoughts?
Yeah, I'm too.
Okay, Chandra, are you okay with that?
Yeah, fine. Basically, you're saying the mapping label will be something that is generated by Volta adapter, and same thing is being used here as well.
No, so Volta adapter is already generating the labels.
Yes.
Right, so we don't touch it at all.
Right.
What we do is there is an attribute, there will be an attribute called mapping label in DMI, and we would ask the implementations of DMI to ensure that it generates the same labels as Volta is doing for those ports.
So when you say generation, what is the point where it gets generated?
So in case of Volta, right, when an OLT is enabled, right, and you go and start talking to the OLT, you find out, okay, how many ports this OLT has, right, and you get those interface indications. And when you get those interface indications, you create the ports on that device, right? And when you are creating the ports, you fill in the labels for those ports, and which are like pon 0, pon 1, pon 2, pon 3, whatever, pon hyphen, the interface ID. Right? This is what I'm calling as the generation of the label. Similarly, on the DMI interface, when you discover the inventory, right, or whenever the inventory is queried, you are reporting the ports, right? So there, when you report the ports, you need to have a new attribute, which we're talking about as the mapping label. The mapping label should be the same as we just talked about. They also should be pon 0, pon 1, pon 2, blah, blah, for the respective ports.
Okay. Let's say if device directly interfaces with NEM, so you are saying that this is the responsibility of the device to generate that mapping label when there is no DM in between.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, fine to me. Thanks.
Okay. So I will work on that proposal, and hopefully we can discuss in the next TST meeting.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Amit. Much appreciate that. These next two, I actually don't recall what these are. I think are the counters and other elements from some work that we were doing on the PM side of things for Deutsche Telekom. Was there any action item on these two? I don't recall what the outcome of the decision was. This. So 4027 apparently is available through the DMI, so that we're good. And 4026, there's some open questions. Should I follow up on these with Girish and Bjorn, Amit, or would you follow up with them?
So I'm just trying to, oops, just trying to see what the issue is. 4026. I don't know, somehow Jira seems to be pretty slow for me. Fetch OLT NNI transceiver data. 4026 seems to be already resolved.
But is it actually in there?
No, there are no
Because
getting
I
reviews.
I see a lot of questions around this, but no implementation.
And fetch OLT point transceiver data, that is also resolved. Did I resolve it? The data for the
Yeah,
OLT.
4027, it's definitely resolved. It's just for 026 that I've adopted.
Okay, let me check on what is. Okay, so RX power, TX power, transceiver temperature, transceiver voltage, transceiver bias, link state, link data rate, NEG dot state. I don't know what is the NEG dot state, but I had put in a last comment saying that this data is available through the DMI. So RX power, TX power, I think transceiver RX power, TX power is there, transceiver temperature, temperature, voltage, bias. Yeah, so at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The first 5 are available through the DMI interface, yeah, for the transceiver. The link state, link data rate, and NEG dot state. I don't know what those 3 are. Link state, link data rate. Well, link data rate should be a metric, right? So link data rate should be coming from Volta. I think we have the packet counters in Volta. So, and the link state is basically the state of the NNI port. I think that also should come from Volta. Because on the DMI interface, we're not doing that. So I think the next 2 should come from Volta. And it's already getting written out to the Kafka bus, I know that as the data rate as the packet counters. Yeah, I think
What's missing?
we don't know what this neg.state is. Somewhere down there.
neg.state.
Is it auto negotiate state enabled or disabled?
Auto negotiation, that could be.
Okay, I think Girish had asked this question. What is
Yeah.
neg.state? Oh, no, Holger had asked to Girish and
Holger asked it to Girish and Girish asked it to Paul. And Paul never replied. So I can take an action item on this.
Yeah, in the BAL object, I see that there is auto negotiate field wherein it says enabled or disabled. And there is also link state that is link up down.
Yeah, which is this one.
Yeah. And there is no data rate. We have just speed. As Amit said, maybe data rate needs to be derived from the counters, the TX bytes packets.
yeah,
Bytes essentially.
we have those counters for the octets, right? So we assume that.
And Amit, there is one question by Beyond on the number of channels, like whether it's a quad or single. That also we can derive from the ONLPD. So ONLPD.
Please clarify the addressing of multiple NNI interfaces. Single lane pluggable.
Whether it is a quad channel or single channel.
But how is that relevant for this discussion?
Basically, yeah, there is one question by Beyond whether that info can be presented through this SFP.
So, see, the thing is here we are talking about the OLT NNI transceiver data, and the following data is to be retrieved. So we said, okay, the first 5 are available on the DMI interface. The link state and link data rate can be got from Volta. Now, the question that Bjorn asked is clarify the addressing of multiple NNI interfaces. So on the DMI interface, it will show up, right? If you have multiple NNI interfaces, it will show up. So that's not a problem. The problem is
in Volta we don't actually support those at the moment.
That's correct.
Why?
Yeah, the problem is that in Volta we don't support multiple NNI interfaces.
So what I would say is just let's not bother for this for a minute. Let's do it later. Whenever we have multiple NNI, we figure this out from multiple NNI.
And add a remark to pay attention to the technical distinction between single lane pluggables and quad lane pluggables. So Holger, do you help us out on this thing, single lane versus quad lane pluggables? And how would it make a difference?
I don't know, sorry.
Okay.
I mean, I just thought it's you have an SFP or QSFP, but
Correct. And
I didn't think.
report.
I mean, it's one, right?
Yeah. So we are going to report it, and if at all there is anything like a splitter or anything that is being used, then I think that also could be reported because you could have multiple ports within the same SFP. Yeah, so I think that should be fine.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think, Andrea, we need to have maybe a small round and to clarify on some of these open items, right? before we could. Okay, it's already marked as resolved, so I don't know how we should take it forward.
Do this. Put it in progress.
So
And
maybe we could invite Bjorn in one of the next
yes,
DMI calls and just, or you could assign it to me. I could work it out with him.
I can invite him.
Okay.
Okay, perfect. But for 0 to 7, we can close it. We can call it done, and that's just it.
And on 4027, my observation is like the request says that for the RX bar, they want the mean RX bar for all the ONTs. But currently we support only on-demand measurement, RSA measurement for the ONU RX bar on the PON port side. It's only on demand. It may be reported like a metric, because reporting like a metric for each ONU could be very resource intensive to conduct the RSA measurement test and report them. So reporting a mean may not be as not possible as per the JIRA issue for the 4027. RX per mean.
Okay, I think that's fine. I think that's fine. Okay.
Sure.
I think that's fine.
So on the PON ID, there was a question on supporting this via the DMI interface, right?
Yeah.
So for construction of PON ID, we need parameters such as what is the TOL? Basically, is it from the OLT or is it from some intermediate range extender? And what is the port number and what is the TX bar? So all this will constitute the PON ID. So should there be any configuration that what to be sent in the PON ID, or should we go with some predefined way for the implementations?
So my understanding is that the feature needs to be implemented wherein a string is taken as input, and we just configured the string as the PON ID. I think there is a limit to the length of the string, but apart from that, the implementations don't care what exactly is the string, what is it made up of. That's my understanding.
So basically, it's 3 parameters. 2 are static and 1 dynamic. So TOL anyway we have to fill, which is dynamic, the TX bar, and the PON ID and others maybe we don't have to care what comes in the configuration. Maybe we can use it for construction.
Chandra, could you point us to which document you're referring to?
I am referring to 984.3 Annexure C.
Maybe, okay, I have not looked into that.
Just
do you have a link for the document,
Andrea, you have it
in the
just
minutes.
above. Yeah, in the minutes.
Second
link. In the minutes you have just above.
Just go up a little bit. Go up about and down, and one of the blue links. The second one. Go down with your mouse.
This one.
The point below that. Just search for 984 in this page, Andrea.
It's here.
It's
3 lines below, 3 or 4 lines, Andrea. From where your mouse pointer is. Oh, I got. We are seeing the Google Docs. Maybe you are seeing Jira ID or something. Is it?
Your screen is not refreshing, or what is it?
Oh, interesting. So whenever I was presenting, you guys were never seeing anything.
No, we can only see the, okay, now everything is gone. We can see your picture. No,
Now?
yeah, okay. Yeah, now we can see the ITUT page.
So at the end?
Next C. Annexure C. Yeah, at the end. Page number is page number 126.
Thanks.
Yes. Here, and the PON ID message description.
So this is how the string is constructed.
There is a description below which says how those bytes are packed. Yeah, ACCC for the PON ID. Yeah.
Is this something we need to check with Deutsche Telekom? Because whenever Paul and Bjorn was talking, I was just, I thought they would just say, yeah, sure, we can configure what we want, but it doesn't seem so.
So if you go up a little bit, I think what they are talking about is the 7-byte identifier, which is the PON identifier.
Yeah, it can be any value of interest is what it says. Could be a PON port.
Yeah, so I think what we are effectively saying is the PON identifier, the second thing, whereas the transmit optical level and the PON ID type, stick provision per an indication of the ODN picture.
So what you're saying is that what Deutsche Telekom will configure is actually only that 7. Well, the first 2, because that they need to do it, and the 7 there. That's what they're going to configure.
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds good to me. It's fine. Was there anything else on this, Chandra?
Also on the periodicity here in this spec, it talks about 1 second. So maybe we can have this as configurable because 1 second could be too frequent. Basically, it won't change much.
Yeah, I would agree that this will not change every second.
Yeah.
Well, maybe it's every second because of the transport optical, the TOL.
Okay. So TX bar changes frequently, like per ONU based on how much distant is it from the PON port, or is it something fixed? Definitely for broadcast, it will be the same power, which will reach to each and every ONU. But when there is a unique, anyway, yeah, I think all is broadcast.
To be honest, I don't know. Maybe Amit or Holger know, but I don't.
I do not know that.
But in any case, I think it should be configurable, the value, right?
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah. the time periodicity, because even the spec doesn't say it has to, it says approx 1 second, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we should have it.
It doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't say it has to be 1 second. Okay.
Okay, sure.
Okay. So given that we have 10 minutes, Chano, do you want to give us a brief update on what's the status of your things, and then if you have created the patch here that was a point on your end?
Sure, Andrea. So on the radices, on the pawn ID, we are just trying to perform a proof of concept to see if it is possible to send this in a downstream flow message. We'll update you on the pawn ID, the first one. And on the reboot, right, reboot event, we can reuse the existing event definition, and we have already introduced a event hardware device reboot already, and that is already merged. And coming to the enumerations for the reboot, in the last meeting, I presented on various reboot reasons like CLI triggered or administrative or upgrade triggered or watchdog triggered. So those, is it fine to introduce a new parameter and that will be only applicable for reboot event? Or should we make use of the additional info field that is there, but that is a string? That one guidance I needed. Should we go ahead and add a new enumeration for reboot reason and introduce in the event structure? Yeah, little up. I think we are.
Yeah.
Yeah, reason for reboot. You have exactly put it for the reason of reboot. Yeah, one option is additional info only. You put it as a string. No need to introduce any enum. Or second option is you introduce a enum specifically for reboot event.
Did we come to a decision last time on this, or was it still need to be discussed?
I can't recall, but I think from a generic thought perspective, right? If the reason for the reboot is to be used only for logging purposes, then having it as a string is good enough, I think. But yeah, if it is to be used for other purposes, then yeah, having it as a enum might be good.
Like for now, I don't see any particular action to be taken in particular cases. It is more for the information and to address those. Like for example, CPLD, maybe you want to address that specifically than a different, let's say, watchdog triggered.
Yeah. So why don't we keep it simple for the time being, right? We could have it as a string to start with, right? And as we come up with more and more use cases, we see a need that, yeah, we need to really make decisions based on this value. We could, in later versions, we could introduce the enum when needed.
Yeah, I agree.
Sure. And anyway, string can be all caps format like an enum, right? We can set in a string as well.
Yeah.
String can be anything, yeah.
As long as we just use it for logging or information purposes, I think it should be okay.
Sure. And issued upon the reconnection of the device after reboot. Yes, this is more about the design we captured. I agree. Nothing open there. Next point is clear. And the last thing is use as well. This is mainly for the timestamp. So already we have a last rebooted timestamp. So we can make use of the hardware last rebooted to report the last boot time.
Okay.
Yeah, with this,
Sounds
I think
good.
this section is clear. This section, there are no open questions.
Okay, sounds good. Perfect.
And moving on to the events, we had internal discussions with engineers who worked on this OpenDM and agent contributions. So overall, what we feel is there is no issue as such in implementing the persistency on the device, as the number of alarms may not be too huge, and it should be feasible to have the persistence of the alarms. But what we think is it is the right place to do it in the device manager, which can do the comparison, the newly reported alarms and also alarms that were reported early, and then accordingly clear or raise the alarm. But if DM plus sets on the device itself, then device needs to take care of it, the persistence of the alarm, and doing a comparison when it boots up again by scanning through all the inventory.
Okay, so if you think it can be done, I would say just go ahead and implement this.
Okay, and just a little concerns are like, let's say before device rebooted, there was one SFP. For that, there was a transmit failure alarm that was active. And now during the course of the reboot, maybe SFP is replaced with some proper SFP that does not have anything. So you need to remember that there was a faulty SFP earlier for which the alarm is there, and you have to send a clear for that, and then raise or send the event that SFP is inserted. So you need to know that there is SFP being changed during the course of reboot. Not just the alarm, you may want to store some context about the previous inventory as well, just in case of SFP.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Store related context along with alarm. Yeah, particularly the SFP case.
I think it's fine storing a little bit more information on the device that what actually is reported in such a way that the reporting of that information is properly done at the NEM level. Meaning that NEM doesn't have to see everything that is asked for. Just give it the information it needs.
Yes, agree, Andrea. Overall, I agree that device manager plus device implementation should take care, and NEM should not be worried about this to purge and rebuild it.
Yep.
Yeah, and moving on to the next one, this is about the software upgrade, the documentation of the states. On the upgrade complete and upgrade failed, earlier when I read it for the first time, I thought that maybe it is for the latest version, and on the activation time, that once it is successful, you are trying to send that upgrade. But what Amit clarified is this is on the standby partition itself. You are trying to say that upgrade complete and failed. I am just coming up with a state diagram wherein the state transition, what is the state, and then what message will make it to go to next state in case of success and in case of failure. Maybe I'll share it offline for review. But there are a couple of open questions I have in there, such as like only after the download image you move to copying, then installing. May I take 1 minute just to present that so that I can exactly say what is the open question I have?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, sure, thanks. Hope you're able to see the screen.
Nope.
Okay.
You can see it now.
Okay.
Yes.
So these are the states which I just mapped to the messages sent. And these are the transitions based on the request issued by the name. Like from the initial state, after the download image is issued, you move to copying image, subsequently installing image on the standby partition. And it can fail or it can succeed. And in case the installation extraction of the image is successful, you say that upgrade complete. Then from northbound, you will issue activate. After the activate is issued, you will go for a reboot so that you try to boot up from the standby partition. Then possibly the commit message image is sent. Is this sequence correct? Rebooting to committing image and then either to activation complete or activation failed.
Rebooting to committing, what is the trigger for that? What is the event?
Like after it reboots, like it goes into committing or activating, because we have a single procedure. Here itself, the activate is called, that will make it to go for a reboot and come back with the standby image as a new version.
So are you saying that the reboot itself is the event to move from the rebooting device to the committing image state?
Yes, only when the activate image is issued, so it is expected to move to either activation complete or failed, right? Finally.
Correct, correct.
So these are intermediate state transitions.
Okay.
Because we don't have commit complete as such. So that was one question.
Yeah.
So one thing is, let's say the activation fails. Now the document says if there is a failure in activation, you will do a rollback, or maybe your self-test fails, you will do automatically rollback to other partition. So we cannot stay in this. So how exactly it is communicated whenever it rolls back by its own, because the new image is not successful with the tests. Maybe just for reference, I'll put all the enumerations that are supported at the moment. These are the enumerations. So my question is, when the activation fails, what will be sent to the name? After this is sent, maybe we'll go for a rollback. Automatically, the device itself does that.
Yeah, so the activation failed. You send the activation failed, and that's it, right? So your procedure has ended, and you roll back.
Okay. Should we send a notification that it did a rollback and that rollback was success or failed?
If a rollback fails, then we're in.
The rollback fails, we are in like in a basically unusable state. But probably still worth to the operator knowing that the rollback failed, because at that point you just pull the plug. You just pull the plug and just go into the BIOS mode and restart it from like scratch.
So I think when you give an activation failed, right? So the operator would know that he tried to activate an image, right, and it did not succeed.
Yes.
The next thing the operator would try and see, according to me, is that is the device up and running or not? Right. So after the activation fails, auto rollback would happen, right?
Right.
And it would again boot up from the previous partition, and everything should come back to normal, right? In terms of services running on the OLT. If that happens,
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So if that happens, it's fine. If that does not happen, right, then it would show up as a problem with reboot of the device. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that after the activation has failed, right, and the operator got that indication, the procedure that he was performing of activation of an image, that procedure is complete. It has failed. From then on, it's like a reboot of a device that is happening.
Okay, so after this, again, it will send the rebooting device that it is going for a reboot.
Not as part of this procedure, right?
Okay, it ends here.
Yeah, this is a terminal state.
I think in our case, activation failed is sent after we did a fallback.
Okay.
So this is really, when you get an activation fail, then there's still the old image running on the OLT.
Okay.
So the rollback was automatically done.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So this is after fallback to previous, it will be sent.
Yeah. Because in our case, it could be that you reboot the device and it cannot boot, and then the device will automatically, I think it will try it several times, and if it's not possible, then it will fall back to the standby partition. And when it comes up again, then this is really the first time we will be in contact to the OLT again. And then we will check the version, we will find out, okay, it's still the old one, and then we will send an activation failed.
Yeah, that is agreeable. So
Yeah.
I agree to your point that, sorry.
Just one point. So when it comes up again after the reboots, we will check the version, the software version which is running on the device, and if it's not the expected one, so if it did a rollback, then we will not send a committing image, and we will send an activation failed. If it's the right one, we will send committing image, and then we will send activation complete.
Okay, so this is not actually after the committing image. So there is no way that after committing image you send activation failed in your case.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I agree. Logically, when we send complete or failed, I think that should be end of this. Okay. If we can ensure that this is the last message, it's fine. That was the one question. And sorry, one more minute I'll take. Second question is from NEM. If we initiate a revert to standby, there is a stream of responses expected. What do we send in those when revert to standby is called? So revert to standby image is a streaming RPC.
Are you sending exactly the same messages as you would do for activate image?
Same rebooting?
Yeah.
Activation. Activation complete and activation failed.
Yeah, I will expect the same messages to arrive.
Okay, so this again should be linked back to rebooting device, and again, okay, same commit image and again activation complete.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. Thanks. Yeah, I just wanted to understand the flow. Yeah, thanks a lot.
Okay. Then if you can maybe also document this and put this in our docs with the DMI interface, that would be good, so people know next time that anybody needs to implement this, they know what is going on. And then yeah, whenever you can, just upload the code for this.
Sure, Andrea.
Sorry, just one question. I mean, you have a gRPC interface, right? So so NEM has to reconnect to the OLT after reboot.
Yes.
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
Will you wait after somebody connects to you and then you will send the events? Or will you send the events when, okay. So if it happens just half an hour later, you will send the event half an hour later.
Yes, whenever the NEM connects back, that time we'll send.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else for today? Okay, then if not, I think we're gonna hold the next meeting at the end of July, the first week of August, the 4th or something like that. Just be aware that the one after, I'm going to cancel it because I am on vacation. So I'll just go ahead and already cancel it. Thanks, everybody, and have a great evening.
Thanks,
Thank you,
everyone.
guys.
Thank
Yep.
you.